After being reborn, the first thing I did was change my college preference. Ethan often stayed on campus during the weekends, so I locked myself in my room, studying tirelessly. Whenever he brought Emily home, I quietly moved out. When he chose to attend University B with Emily, I applied to university instead. In my previous life, just before the college entrance exams, Ethan, knowing full well I hadn't stolen anything, still accused me of being a thief. He did it just so he and Emily could be together cleanly and honestly. Fine, let them be together, but clean and honest? Did they even deserve those words? No one knew I had been reborn. As I stared at my mock exam scores, I was on the verge of breaking down. In my past life, the false accusation of stealing Emily's watch had shattered my mental state. It led to the worst exam performance of my life, and my score fell far below my usual capabilities. So, after being reborn, I made my first big decision. I changed my college preference to University A. My teacher was shocked. Didn't you always say you wanted to go to the same university as Ethan? Does he know about this? At the mention of Ethan's name, his tall, protective figure flashed in my mind. Everyone used to say I was unworthy of him. He came from a wealthy family, was handsome, and a model student in the eyes of the teachers. Meanwhile, I was just the daughter of his father's old comrade, someone his family supported out of loyalty. I gave a faint smile and said, I don't think that way anymore. I feel University A suits me better now. In my past life, my mock scores were consistently higher than University A's cutoff, but I changed my preference to University B just to follow Ethan. My sudden decision surprised my teacher, who gave my shoulder a supportive pat. Back then, Ethan and Emily had orchestrated the accusation against me. Emily pulled me aside in front of everyone, her face streaked with tears, and demanded justice. Claire, I know my family isn't wealthy and maybe you look down on me, but this watch was a gift from Ethan. I've been so careful with it. Please, I'm begging you, just return it, she cried, her voice trembling. Then she collapsed into Ethan's arms, sobbing loudly. Ethan glared at me and said, Claire, when you were bullying Emily, did you ever think about your own background? Being poor isn't wrong, but letting poverty breed evil intentions is. Hand over the watch now and we'll forget this ever happened. The crowd looked at me with disdain, mocking me and enjoying the drama. I gave a bitter smile. The boy who had once promised to protect me for life, how had he become like this? My chest felt crushed. My heart ached deeply. I hadn't stolen the watch. How could I return it? With no concrete evidence, they couldn't take action. But I never expected Ethan, who had always been so kind to me, to lock me in a room under the pretext of teaching me a lesson while his parents were away. Emily had complained that our public argument embarrassed her. Ethan said I had always been able to endure things, so a little suffering wouldn't matter. Emily, being delicate, couldn't handle gossip. That night, the door stayed locked. My nerves finally snapped. The next day was the college entrance exam. I banged on the door and windows, screaming for help, but the only reply was my own echo in the massive, empty villa. In despair, I grabbed a glass and smashed it against the window. The shards cut into my flesh, but I didn't care. By dawn, I sat there, shivering, bleeding, and cold. Somehow, I endured the pain and managed to complete the 3-day exam, but my mental state was wrecked. I scored poorly and ended up at a mediocre university. Eventually, I died in a car accident deliberately orchestrated by Emily. I hated the two of them with every fiber of my being, but now, I had been given another chance. I had been reborn 3 months before the college entrance exams. This time, everything could change. Back at Ethan's house, I began packing my things. This villa had been a wedding gift from Ethan's parents. Olivia had always treated me well, but there was no future between me and Ethan. The warmth I felt toward Olivia had to be buried deep in my heart. As I packed, I started drafting a new study plan. My eyes landed on the photograph of my dream. university hanging on the wall. Hope filled my heart. If I stayed focused and performed well, I'd leave this place behind for good. That evening, I cooked dinner like usual. Ethan came back, as expected, with Emily. Claire, Emily chirped sweetly. Ethan brought me over again for dinner. You don't mind, do you? Emily was petite, her oval-shaped face framed by pale skin. She looked especially delicate and pure in her white school uniform. She made herself at home, squealing at the sight of the dishes I'd prepared. Without hesitation, she called Mrs. Smith, the housekeeper, to serve the food. Emily got a bowl of porridge, Ethan got one, Mrs. Smith got one but none for me. By the time I returned from the bathroom, the three of them were already seated, chatting and laughing like a family. Emily took one bite, then spit it out. I'm allergic to peanuts, she cried, tears filling her eyes. I leaned against the doorframe, watching Ethan pour her a bowl of soup also made with a peanut base. Emily left in tears, muttering, Claire probably doesn't like me. I won't come back anymore. Ethan escorted her out, then returned, frowning. You did that on purpose, he said, confused. Then, as if trying to justify himself, he added, Emily's family is struggling. I bring her here for a good meal, just like my family did for you. All those years. I didn't reply. He sighed, shaking his head like he was giving up. If you don't like her, I'll take her to a restaurant next time. A week later, Ethan stayed on campus to tutor Emily. Meanwhile, I carried a thick stack of practice exams to the library. In the past, Ethan would study at home with me. I patiently guided him through each problem, but now, his focus was on Emily and their shared future at university. As I packed my books, I found old certificates of achievement Ethan and I had earned over the years. I couldn't help but wonder, would he be able to keep up his grades if study sessions were just an excuse for dates? I packed my own certificates honors I earned through my own efforts and left the villa for the old apartment where I grew up. It was far in the suburbs but filled with childhood memories. I cleaned my father's posthumous military plaque, the one he received for bravery. Dad, I whispered, I promise I'll do whatever it takes to achieve my goals. With just over 2 months until exams, freedom was on the horizon. That night, Ethan came home late. The dinner I'd made sat untouched. I ate at school, he said casually, but I could smell the faint scent of cumin on him. He'd eaten with Emily. He knew better than to bring her home, so they ate out instead. I motioned for Mrs. Smith to clear the dishes and quietly went to my room. Only seasonal clothes and study materials remained. I packed the rest once Ethan left for another one of his study dates. Now that I was determined to build a better future, I poured all my time into studying. While others wasted time flirting or chatting, I focused entirely on my reviews. One evening, a knock came at my door. I knew it was Ethan. Because of my father's sacrifice for his father, Ethan always treated me with a certain respect. He never entered my room without permission. What is it? I asked, hiding the suitcase behind me. He hesitated, then said, The engagement banquet is being prepared. How about the third day after the exams? In my past life, our engagement had been arranged by our parents, set to take place right after the college entrance exams. I glanced at my suitcase and replied calmly, There's no rush. Let's talk once Olivia gets back. Ethan stood there for a while, then left. Only when his footsteps faded did I realize I'd been holding my breath. I rested my head on the desk, finally letting out a sigh of relief. Because of the pact between our parents, Olivia had taken me in after mine died. To outsiders, I was already part of Ethan's family. The engagement was just a formality. Ethan was handsome, excelled in his studies, and treated me well. It was no secret my heart had always belonged to him. I owed the Johnsons for raising me, but I had repaid that debt teaching Ethan tirelessly. Even in my past life when he ruined my future, that was enough repayment. In this life, I owed them nothing. I would walk my own path, That weekend, Ethan surprised me by staying home. He even brought breakfast, my favorite sweet porridge and fried dough sticks, something he hadn't done in a long time. As I scrolled through vocabulary words on my phone, he suddenly said, "I'll stay home with you to study today." I looked up, surprised, and instinctively shook my head. "Don't you want me to keep you company?" he asked, frowning slightly. "You'll just be cooped up in your room all weekend." I was about to come up with an excuse when the doorbell rang. Emily's voice came through the intercom, cheerful and sweet. "Ethan." She stood at the door holding to breakfasts. As soon as it opened, she tilted her head and smiled at him, blocking my view. "Why are you here?" "I told you to wait for me," Ethan said, moving to shield her from my sight. Emily peeked out from behind him. "Sorry, Claire," she said softly. "I was just worried he'd skip breakfast, so I came to find him." I stared at her, so innocent, so pure, just like in my past life. And no matter what she said, it always stirred Ethan's protective instincts. When he heard she'd been willing to go hungry to wait for him, he naturally followed her out in a hurry, forgetting all about his promise to stay with me. So much for keeping me company. He had clearly planned to meet her all along. I scoffed to myself. At least now I didn't need to come up with an excuse to move out. Pulling out my phone, I opened my moving checklist. I didn't waste a second. I dragged out the luggage I had secretly packed in advance, called a moving service, and had everything sent to my new apartment. Once it all arrived, I spent the afternoon organizing my things. Looking around the modest place, I smiled at the photos I just arranged. "Dad," I whispered softly, "your daughter is perfectly fine on her own. I don't need to rely on anyone anymore." That day, I stayed home and studied from morning to night. I only returned to Ethan's house in the evening. The intense pace of preparing for exams made the days blur together. Late at night, under the glow of street lamps, my shadow was the only companion I had, silently chasing knowledge, bent over books. On Friday evening, Olivia and Mr. Johnson returned from a business trip. They sat silently on the sofa, sighing deeply. Olivia finally spoke with unusual seriousness. "Claire, Hugh's just close with a classmate right now, but you and Ethan have been betrothed since childhood. If he dares not marry you, I'll make sure he regrets it. Your parents entrusted you to us before they passed, and your father, he saved our family, will always look after you." I said nothing. They exchanged a glance, clearly frustrated. "You're so stubborn," Olivia finally muttered. "Fine, we'll cancel the engagement banquet." I watched silently as she picked up the phone and canceled everything, called off the reservations, withdrew the deposit. Just like that, the banquet was gone before it had even begun. I let out a quiet breath of relief, stood, and bowed deeply to them both. I knew they meant well. Ethan had always been the model student, the golden boy everyone admired. His parents couldn't understand why I insisted on ending things. But how could I explain? How could I tell them that in my past life, I had been betrayed, sabotaged before the college entrance exams, and eventually killed in a car crash fueled by jealousy and hate? Even after canceling the engagement, Olivia and Mr. Johnson told me I would always be like a daughter to them. I didn't have the heart to say I planned to leave after the exams. For now, I would accompany them through the next 2 months. In the days before the exam, Olivia insisted on driving me to school herself. Her voice trembled as she held my hand. "Study hard," she said. "We'll visit you often." When I unpacked at school, I discovered she had quietly slipped a thick wad of cash into my bag. Tears welled in my eyes. She must have noticed my room slowly emptying, but she never said a word. She respected my choices, always silently watching over me like a quiet guardian. One evening, as I opened my suitcase, Ethan's voice startled me from behind. "Is Emily still upset?" he asked. I turned. He froze when he saw me. "Claire, what are you doing here?" I calmly pointed toward the room next door. "Your room is over there." Just then, the neighboring door creaked open. Emily peeked out, gave me an awkward smile, and quickly shut herself back inside. Ethan's face was full of guilt. He hesitated, then said, "Emily's family situation is complicated. She lives far from campus. I thought she could stay here to prepare for the exam, so it had already reached the point where they shared a roof and a bed." After a pause, he offered, "You can move into my room. I'll sleep on the floor." He opened the door to show me, then frowned. "What happened to all the books in your room? You used to have so many." I picked up a textbook and said casually, "I've already finished them. They weren't useful anymore." He looked surprised. "Even if exams are 2 days away, you might need them. Why sell them?" When I didn't answer, he shifted the topic. "What about the engagement? What did my parents say?" "They said the timing's not right. We'll talk later," I replied evenly. That was the excuse Olivia and I had agreed on to delay the truth until I moved out. He seemed content with that answer and left to arrange things. I looked at the empty shelves in his room. Only a few martial arts novels we once read together remained. I briefly considered returning them, but the sound of laughter outside interrupted my thoughts. Ethan, Emily, Mrs. Smith. Their voices drifted through the walls, happy, carefree, like nothing had changed. Sharing a roof with Ethan was already improper, especially with the engagement off. But with the exams only 2 days away, leaving now would create unnecessary drama. I decided I'd wait until nightfall to quietly sleep on the living room couch, but Emily, in a flimsy nightgown, lounged in the living room, pulling Ethan aside, giggling, asking him to help her study. He glanced at me once, then guided her upstairs. Their voices still carried too loud to deliberate. Feeling suffocated, I stepped outside. "Claire," called a neighbor from her window. "Why are you out so late? Aren't exams coming up? You'll catch a cold." The house was stuffy, I replied, forcing a smile. She leaned over her balcony. "That Ethan. He looks so devoted, but now he's bringing another girl into your house before your exams. You're too kind, girl. If you let him walk over you now, he'll never stop." I didn't argue. Apparently, Ethan had told everyone I suggested Emily stay with us, claiming it was out of kindness to help her study. How clever, using my name to protect his image. But I didn't bother correcting anyone. I planned to leave anyway. The next morning, I went to school early. Only a few students had arrived. I pulled out my notebook and started reviewing mistakes until I noticed something strange on my desk. A shiny, expensive-looking watch. Not mine. Suddenly, Emily's panicked voice rang out. "Ah, my watch is gone." She searched her bag dramatically, her eyes shimmering. "That watch is worth almost $10,000. I picked it up, intending to return it, but she lunged, slapping my hand hard. The watch flew to the ground with a clatter. Everyone turned. The murmurs began. "Isn't Claire the girl raised by Ethan's family? She's probably jealous of Emily and wants to marry rich. Some habits just don't change." Emily clung to Ethan's arm, her voice trembling, tears welling. "There must be a misunderstanding. Claire must have her reasons. She always knew how to sound innocent, how to twist the truth just enough." Ethan looked at me darkly. "Claire, stealing is a crime. You could go to jail." Emily's friends piled on. "She's probably trying to sabotage Emily before exams. She's just bitter. We should call the police." I stood in the center of it all, the accusations swirling like a storm. I picked up the shattered watch and said clearly, "Go ahead, call them. The one who really knows how this ended up here is the person who put it there." Emily's face paled. "No, don't call the police," she stammered. "That wouldn't be good for Claire." Her friends hissed. "You're too soft-hearted." "Soft-hearted?" I let out a cold laugh and slapped her across the face. A stunned silence fell. "Pathetic, Emily," I said. "You really don't know what you've done. Should I start listing it all out for you?" Ethan rushed to her side, furious. "Claire, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with me?" I echoed bitterly. "She accused me of theft before the most important exam of my life. Check the cameras if you want the truth." But when they checked, the footage was conveniently unavailable. In the end, the teacher handed the watch to the principal. Emily, of course, shed more tears while Ethan held her, comforting her like she was the victim. That night, he found me again. "I'll sleep on the couch tonight," he said stiffly. I didn't answer. Then, as if he couldn't hold it in any longer, he added, "Emily cried all afternoon. Did you really have to be so petty?" I let out a cold laugh. It caught Ethan off guard. Maybe he expected me to get angry, defend myself, plead even. But instead, I stayed calm. And somehow, that seemed to irritate him more. "Fine," I said with a faint smile. "Whatever you say." He faltered, visibly unsettled, like something was slipping out of his control. In my past life, I had followed Ethan around like a shadow, laughing only when he laughed, afraid to cry if he was displeased. Looking back, I was a fool, but this time, I knew better. I kept my distance. Ethan clearly hadn't expected me to give in so easily. His expression flickered with panic, like he could sense I was slipping away and had no idea how to stop it. The next day, I returned to my old apartment a day earlier than planned. I packed all my personal documents, just in case. That night, I sat at my desk, flipping through my mistake book. Halfway through, there was a knock. Assuming it was a neighbor, I opened the door without thinking. But standing there was Ethan. Just a t-shirt on, hair disheveled, skin pale like he'd been standing in the cold night wind. My first thought, he still wasn't ready to let me go. The neighborhood was quiet, just the occasional cry of a stray cat echoing through the darkness. Ethan stared into my eyes like he was searching for something. "Maybe a weakness. Come home with me," he said, his voice unusually soft. I met his gaze calmly. "This is my home." He reached out to grab my hand, but I stepped back. "Claire, don't be mad. Please, just come home with me." He lifted one foot, like he was about to step inside and do something. "Help me pack, maybe," but I pushed the door halfway shut. His eyes drifted to the living room table, to the pile of things I'd brought back from the Johnsons' house. "Old books? What are those?" I froze. "They're just books I plan to sell." His face grew tense, confused, angry. "You've kept them in such good condition. You've always been so careful with your things," he muttered, almost to himself. I sighed. My grip on the door didn't loosen. "You're still upset," he frowned. "Emily was just in a rush. She misunderstood you. She really loves that. Watch. She's always respected you, cares about you. She even told me to come find you today. But you're always so." He stopped when he saw my expression. Cold, distant, like he was a stranger to me. I laughed softly. "Respect? Is that what you call cozying up with someone else when your engagement is around the corner? Letting her sleep in your bed while you're still with me?" His face cracked, caught between disbelief and defensiveness. "What cozy? I just feel sorry for her. Her family's a mess. I'm just helping her out." "Helping her?" I scoffed. "Does helping now mean sharing a bed? Since when did handing out homes to every girl you pity become your new life mission?" He paled. His composure was cracking. "Claire, you're angry. Let's calm down. Tomorrow, the driver will come pick you up." And with that, he stumbled out of the apartment. I stood there, listening to the sound of his uneven footsteps fade down the stairs, and smiled faintly. It's strange how intense anger can make you laugh. How could I have been so blind? In my past life, I'd chased someone who never truly saw me. This time, I wouldn't repeat that mistake. I buried myself in study, stayed home, and kept to myself. Ethan never came back, but one night, while reviewing mistakes, I heard rustling outside my door. Curious, I turned the handle and clink, an iron chain rattled. I was locked in. Emily. Only she had the audacity to pull something like this. Without hesitation, I called the police. The next morning, our class gathered to enter the exam hall. Emily was all smiles, unusually cheerful. "Don't worry. Claire won't be late," she said smugly. Ethan, standing beside her, gently patted her head. "Good luck, Emily," he said, his voice soft. But then he seemed to recall my cold stare from days before. Unease flickered across his face. As students, entered. My absence was obvious. Emily's grin widened, bubbling with excitement. She was already imagining my failure. After the exam, reporters caught up with Jason, the usual runner-up in our grade. You are the first student we've interviewed. Was the test hard? Jason smiled confidently. It was manageable. Emily, walking by, added sweetly, Jason, you'll definitely be number one this time. Jason's smile disappeared. Don't jinx it, Emily, he said sharply, making her flinch. But Claire didn't even show up. If you're not first, who could be? Jason ignored her. From that day on, I never stepped foot in the Johnsons' home again. The next time I saw Ethan was just before the celebration banquet. He entered with Emily clinging to his arm, but the moment he saw me, he shook her off. He tried to act normal. Claire, if the exam didn't go well, it's okay. You can repeat the year. My cousin runs a great prep class. With your grades, you could still get into University B next year. You'd even be our junior. I smiled slightly. Such a great opportunity, why not save it for yourself? Emily's friends bristled. Claire, don't be ungrateful. She's just thinking of your future. Lots of people retake the year. Don't let pride ruin your chances. Their fake concern was laughable. Just then, Jason walked in and overheard. Emily, you and your pack of dogs are barking again, he said coldly. On exam day you were cursing her, and now you want her to repeat the year. Shameless. Should I give you an award for it? Emily turned pale, glancing at Ethan, silently pleading. Ethan frowned, then turned to me. Even if you didn't take the exam, just come home. And that's when I truly understood. And no matter what Emily did, how twisted, how selfish, Ethan would always justify her. Her hard life was his excuse for everything. Everyone else just had to accommodate her. Something in me snapped. Without warning, I slapped Ethan across the face. The sharp sound silenced the room. Emily rushed forward, stunned, tears vanishing as she stepped in front of him. Why did you hit him? Are you crazy? She raised her hand to slap me back, but Jason was faster. He grabbed her wrist and shoved her back. She stumbled into Ethan's arms. I've seen enough, Jason said coldly. A little discipline won't kill you. Ethan's eyes darkened. He grabbed my wrist roughly. You're coming with me. We need to settle this. Pain shot through my arm as he yanked me forward, but before I could react, Jason's fist landed squarely on Ethan's jaw. Ethan stumbled backward. Jason stood protectively in front of me. She said she doesn't want to go. Back off, or get your eyes checked. Ethan clutched his jaw, furious. Emily tried to calm him. Ethan, don't fight over someone like her. She's not worth it. Some classmates had started to gather. Ethan's chest heaved. He looked around, then at me. I'm disappointed in you, Claire, he said through clenched teeth. After they left, I stood there trying to calm my breathing. Jason looked at me. I didn't get a chance to kick him, I muttered. You beat me to it, Jason laughed. You really surprised me. I didn't attend the banquet. Jason noticed and invited me to the riverside instead. We watched fireworks for hours, the sky lit with color. Parents celebrated the end of exams while I finally breathed freely. As the last sparks fell, Jason turned to me, leaned close, and whispered, why not consider someone else for a change? I stayed silent. Right now, I wasn't ready for love. My heart needed space, needed to grow stronger. When the exam results were released, gossip exploded. Emily had been arrested. Photos of her being escorted into a police car went viral. And right next to those images, screenshots of my name ranked number 1 in the country. Classmates who saw me in the exam hall spoke up. I told you I saw her in her seat. She really took the test, and she got into University A. Suddenly, everyone wanted to say they were proud to know me. Emily's past interview bragging about Jason becoming number 1 resurfaced, now used to mock her. After being bailed out by Ethan's family, Emily fainted at the sight of my results and had to be hospitalized. She tricked Ethan into giving her my address, locked me in, and tried to sabotage my exam. But I had filmed everything from my window. I hadn't said anything before. I was waiting for her to fly high so the fall would hurt even more. This time, in this life, I wouldn't let her off so easily, with my grades consistently ranking at the top of the class. I focused on my future. I had no time for distractions, but even then, whispers about Ethan and Emily's breakup reached my ears. Apparently, Emily had let something slip during a casual chat with her friends, something about the watch, and about locking me in that room. Ethan had overheard everything. He was stunned. The image he had clung to of Emily, the innocent, gentle girl, shattered in seconds. He confronted her, demanding the truth. Why? He asked. Why did you act innocent all these years, while blaming everything on Claire? For years, Ethan believed I was petty, jealous, mean-spirited. He'd called me toxic, controlling, even a bully. But now, with the truth staring him in the face, he was forced to question everything. By the time he realized how wrong he had been, winter had already arrived. Emily cried and begged for 2 months. But in the end, all she got was a large breakup settlement and a cold sentence from Ethan. Don't let me see you again. That was Ethan, always the same. Even in heartbreak, he made himself the center of the story, while he wallowed in regret. Jason and I began quietly sharing more time together. He had also gotten into University A and was never far. He sat beside me in class, joined me for lunch, waited outside after exams, and tonight he invited me to see the fireworks at the river. 5 kilometers from campus. I said yes, because it was time to face our feelings and bring clarity to whatever this thing between us had become. The year was ending. I bundled up in a winter coat and wrapped a thick beige scarf around my neck. As I approached the campus gate, I saw someone I hadn't expected. Ethan. He stood pale and haggard in the cold, clearly having waited for a long time. The moment he spotted me, he rushed forward and pulled me into a tight embrace. I struggled against him, pounding his chest, but he refused to let go. His hand cradled the back of my head, voice trembling. Claire, I know you're angry, but I'm actually glad, because it means you still care. I didn't respond. Instead, I lifted my knee and drove it straight into his stomach. He stumbled back. Go home, Ethan, I said flatly. Stop acting crazy. Just then, Jason arrived. He saw the scene and didn't hesitate. He shoved Ethan away and moved in front of me, his presence sharp and protective. Haven't you had enough of haunting her like some ghost? Jason snapped. Ethan's expression twisted, rage flaring in his eyes. You again? He growled. Are you coveting what's mine? He raised a fist, but I stepped forward and cut him off. Ethan, we have nothing to do with each other anymore. He froze. Claire, he murmured, eyes wide. I was wrong. If I'd known you'd really end the engagement, I never would have let you go. I'd have stayed. I misunderstood everything, but now I know. Let's start over, please. I gave a cold laugh. No. Then I turned to Jason. Let's go. Without hesitation, I reached for his hand and Jason, without a word, held mine tightly. Ethan just stood there frozen, stunned as we walked away together. Behind us, in the biting wind, he remained still, his figure shrinking as he watched us disappear into the night. By the bridge, the wind swirled around us. Fireworks lit up the sky in vibrant bursts, casting reflections on Jason's sharp features. We stood in silence until he finally spoke. Claire, does this mean what I think it means? I couldn't help but laugh softly. I'd been waiting for him to ask, but as I opened my mouth to respond, Jason gently placed a warm hand over my lips. Shh, let me speak first, he said softly, his star-like eyes locking with mine. Claire, for 3 years, you've always been ahead of me, whether in rankings, in the dining hall, even in my thoughts. He smiled, a little shyly. I watched you study, eat, tackle exams, all with that serious look in your eyes. At first, I thought I admired you, but then I realized I'm just hopelessly in love with you. He glanced up at the sky, his nose red from the cold. I used to watch from a distance, as you smiled, cried, hurt always for Ethan. And it made me feel like a terrible person, wishing I could take his place. He chuckled dryly. Then Emily appeared, and for once, it felt like I could finally breathe. He paused, then continued in a low voice. I could tell you this story 100 times, if you let me. I know you're scared of love, scared it'll distract you from your goals. You always say your heart has no place for men because you need your strength to wield your sword. Jason's hand clenched lightly at his side. Well, then how about this? I'll wield the sword for you. Just let me stand by your side. Will you? I stared at him, breath caught. Could it really be that simple? Slowly, I pulled off my warm gloves and slid my hand into his. Then the job is yours, I whispered. Boyfriend. Jason's expression lit up. The walls around him crumbled in one rush of raw joy. Claire, 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 he repeated, eyes bright, voice full of warmth. My girlfriend.